In this video, we're going to look at Excel's hierarchy charts. Hierarchy charts are an excellent visualization for representing hierarchical data, or data that's been subdivided into subcategories. So for example, with Rowan's greenhouse gas emission data, he's actually divided it into the top 10 countries and the other countries. He wants to be able to see proportionally how many emissions come from just the top 10 emitters. He's then divided the top 10 into the countries themselves, and within each country, the sectors that are producing the most emissions. This is what we call hierarchical data, and we now have two stunning chart types for representing this data. Before we create them, it is quite important that your data is structured correctly. So you must have your main category in your first column, your next category in the second column, etc. The last column must contain a numeric value. Now, if I scroll down to my other countries, my non-top 10, you'll see these have not been broken down by sector, and that's fine. You don't need the same number of subcategories in each case, but you must make sure again that the numeric data ends up in that last column. Our data's all good. Let's now create our chart. So clicking anywhere in the data, we're going to come to our Insert tab, and in the Charts group, we're going to come to the Insert Hierarchy Chart icon and click the drop-down. Two to choose from. The first one we're going to go for is the Sunburst. So select Sunburst, and then let's make this nice and big because we've got quite a lot of data. And there's our visually stunning Sunburst chart. Very easy to understand. The innermost ring shows us the breakdown of top 10 versus the other countries. Then the next ring is the actual top 10 countries themselves, and finally the individual sectors. Let's make a few changes to this chart. So I'm going to come to the green plus to get my chart elements, and I'm going to untick chart title. And instead I'm going to use the shape that I created earlier. So I'm going to click on it, Control X to cut, click into my chart and Control V to paste. And I'm just going to position that somewhere near the middle, and you can resize it slightly if you need to. You'll notice the data labels automatically display where they will fit. If we make them slightly smaller, we can fit a few more labels. So I'm going to click onto one of my data labels, come up to my Home tab, and I'm going to change the size to 7. I'm just going to click in the box and type a 7 and press enter. And they're still readable, but I can now fit a few more. The other change I could make, which will help visibility, is the borders. The lines here are very thick. So to change that, we're going to click somewhere into the chart. I'm then going to right click and choose Format Data Series. This will open my panel on the right, and I'm going to click into my paint bucket and come down to border. And what we want to change is our width. If you click the drop down, it will actually go straight to 0, which is a little smaller than I had in mind. So we're going to change that to 0.2 and press enter. And if you click away for a moment, you'll see we get much thinner, more elegant lines. Now, because we only had the two series, we've only got two colors, and I'd like a little more, which again is easy to do. So I'm going to start again by clicking into my series, and then I'm going to click onto Other to highlight just the Other series. Then I'm going to come to my color fill. I'm going to make that a nice light gray. Then click into your top 10, and we're going to make this a slightly darker gray. And now what I'd like to do is give my top 5 emitters each their own color. So I'm going to start by clicking into China, and I'll make that blue. And then I'm going to repeat that process for my other 4 top emitters. And there is our completed Sunburst chart. Let's now have a look at how we create a tree map. So we're going to click into the next tab in our chart. And you'll see this data is very similar, except we only have the two categories. Also, you'll notice with the primary category that it actually has been repeated. Now that's fine, it will work really nicely, but here we have to be a little careful about our sort order. It's really important that the data is sorted by main category. In other words, if I came into country and I resorted my data, that is not going to work. So just make sure that you are sorted by main category. I'm going to undo that change. Now with your data selected, so you can just be clicked in it, we're going to come into our Insert tab. We're going to come to Charts, and this time we're going to choose Tree Map. And again, let's make that nice and big. So Tree Map, very similar concept to our Sunburst. You can clearly see the breakdown showing which of our regions are emitting the most and which countries within those regions make up those emissions. So for example, Africa is producing comparatively little in the way of CO2, but South Africa on its own is probably making up for about a third of those total emissions. Now we can easily add some formatting to this chart as well. This time I'm going to come to my chart design ribbon and let's add some styling. So I'm just going to select the style 7, which gives me a bit of a gradient color. And to change the colors, we have our 5 series this time, so we don't need to get as manual. We can just come to our change color option and choose another color set. Finally, we should give this a proper chart title. So I'm going to click into my chart title and then Control A to select all. And I'm going to type CO2 emissions by country 2017. But you'll notice the 2 doesn't look quite right. That really should be a subscript, and you can do it in Excel. It's just a little harder to find. So I'm going to highlight just the 2. I'm going to come to my Home tab, and at the bottom corner of the font group, you can open your font settings. The keyboard shortcut is Control-1, and we're going to choose Subscript, and then say OK. And that's looking great. So 2 chart types we've looked at for representing hierarchical data, our Sunburst and our Tree Map. These chart types are only available in Excel 2016 and later, but in this week's practice challenge, we're going to show you an alternative method for creating a hierarchy chart using Excel's donut chart.